Does God exist? Guys, welcome back. Today we're going to answer one of the biggest questions a person can ask. Is there a God? Not which God, nor what are God's attributes or traits, just is there one? Now, before we get started, normally I'd say let's just get sucked right into this, but before we get started, this is a disclaimer. I am not trying to prove Christianity. I am not trying to prove the infallibility of the Bible or that Jesus is the Christ. That's not this video here at all. Just, is there a God? Right now, those are things that I believe, and we'll get there. But if we're honest, none of those other questions matter until we answer the simple one. Is there a creator at all? So I'm not interested in winning an argument here. And if you've already made up your mind that God doesn't exist, I'm probably not going to change that in 30 minutes. And this video isn't for people who are looking to score points. It's for those who are searching. It's for the dude who's laying in bed at 2 o'clock in the morning just wondering, like, what if I'm wrong? What if there's something more? What am I missing? If that's you, we're glad you're here, and I hope you stick around. We are going to be getting into some pretty serious topics. We're going to be doing it quickly. So we're just going to be kind of blowing through stuff. I got a whole bunch of stuff up over here. For you guys, these are just the names of the stuff, and you know, if you want to go read these pages, they're all really great, and I suggest that you do. All right. So I would like to say I know what it feels like to be, you know, wandering or lost or alone, just searching. There was a time in my life when I wanted Christianity to be false. I spent years reading arguments. That's where I came up with this stuff against God. I wasn't looking for reasons to believe. I was looking for reasons not to. And the deeper I dug into, you know, physics, mathematics, information theory, philosophy, what have you, the harder it became to believe that everything around us is an accident. You see, that journey didn't make me a Christian overnight, but it did convince me of one thing. Belief in a creator isn't the rejection of reason. It's actually where reason leads me. Now, here's how we're going to approach this, because this is a difficult topic and we got a lot of stuff to cover. I'm not going to show you one scientific fact or graphic or paper or whatever and say, see, my God. Like, I'm not going to do that. That's not how evidence works. Evidence is cumulative. Like, we're building a court case. Imagine you're a detective. You walk into a murder scene. There's a broken window. There's mud on the floor. There's a bloody knife. There's fingerprints. There's a security camera in the room. There's a witness. And here's the important part. None of those individual pieces of evidence by themselves necessarily would solve the case. Fingerprints alone, that's not enough. A witness, maybe the witness is mistaken. A knife, it could belong to anybody. But when all those pieces start to point in the same direction, when everything starts aiming the same way, we stop asking whether each individual piece proves the case. And you start asking what explanation best fits all the evidence, right? And that's what we're trying to do today. We're going to examine reality itself. Not just one thing, but everything we can in 30 minutes. I mean, we're really, really going fast through this stuff, guys. Scratching the surface is an exaggeration. We're not scratching the surface. We're mentioning titles of things that I want you to go look up. Check this out. Dive down some rabbit holes. Look into this stuff, guys. Like, science is cool, because to me, science is the study of God. So we are going to talk about the universe, the laws of physics, mathematics, DNA, consciousness, beauty, morality, the existence of an objective truth. None of these things by themselves prove God, but together they begin to paint a picture. I want you to ask yourself this question. Which explanation best fits the world that I actually live in? If the evidence points towards a creator, then in our next lesson, we'll ask the obvious question, the next question. Who is he? But first, let's dive into this. So before we start talking about physics, DNA, or the universe, we're gonna jump straight into the biggest objection that we get, or that I've heard, to God. And maybe you've heard someone say, or maybe you've said this yourself. If God is real, why is there so much evil? Why did children get cancer? Right? Why are children abused? Why do innocent people die? Why does war exist? These aren't stupid questions. These are actually very, very difficult questions. If you've lost a child, or if you've buried a loved one, if you yourself have been abused, I'm not going to pretend I can explain your pain away in 5 minutes. I can't, and I'm not even going to try to. I don't think anyone should try to. Pain is real. Evil is real. Suffering is real. But today we're asking a different question. Not why does evil exist? Does evil prove there is no God? They're two completely different questions. Suppose someone walks up to you and says, there can't be a creator because evil exists. Okay, let's follow that thought for just a minute. When you say something is evil, what do you mean? What do you mean evil? Do you mean I don't like it? Or do you mean it's actually wrong? Because there's a massive difference. I don't like olives. I don't like mayonnaise, but does that make olives and mayonnaise evil? You may not like country music. Does that make country music immoral? You see, those are opinions. But if somebody hurts a child, none of us say, well, that's just your opinion. No one. We say that's evil. Not unpopular, not uncomfortable. Evil. Now, here's why that matters. If evil is real, then good must also be real. And if good and evil are real, where do they come from? Who decides? Imagine you walk into a courtroom and the judge looks at the man on trial and says, murder isn't really wrong, I just personally don't like it. You'd probably think, I want a different judge. Why? Because we all expect justice. We believe some things are truly right and some things are truly wrong. Not because we voted on them, not because society has changed its mind, but because they're really actually wrong. Now, I'm not saying an atheist can't be a good person. I've known atheists who are great, kind, generous, honest people, and I gladly work with those people. That's not the question. The question here is different. If there is no God, where do objective right and wrong come from? Do they come from matter, chemistry, random chance? Can atoms tell us that love is better than hate? Can molecules explain why sacrificing your life for a child is noble, or why torturing an innocent person is evil? Science can tell us how our brains work. It can tell us what chemicals are released at what time, and it can tell us what parts of our brain become active during certain activities. These are amazing discoveries, but none of them answer a different question. Why is love good? Why is cruelty evil? Science describes. It doesn't tell us what ought to be. Here's my point. The existence of evil doesn't automatically prove there is no God. In fact, our ability to recognize evil may actually point towards something beyond ourselves. Because if evil is truly real, then there must be a standard by which we recognize it. Just like you can't draw a crooked line unless you already know what a straight line looks like. Now, does that prove God? No. Remember I said that, one fingerprint doesn't solve the case. This is just a piece of the puzzle. So let's keep going here. Why is there something rather than nothing? That's our next piece of evidence. Maybe one of the biggest questions anyone's ever asked. Why is there something instead of nothing? Well, take a second. Let's take a beat here. Think that through. Not why is there an Earth, not why is there a galaxy, anything. Why is anything anything? What? Why? Imagine there is absolutely nothing. No matter, no energy, no space, no time, no stars, no galaxies, nothing. Not even a place for nothing to exist. Just nothing. That's like, it's hard for my brain to even grasp the concept of true nothing. Ask yourself the simple question. How something? Like, and some people will say, okay, well, maybe the universe created itself. But think about that. Before the universe existed, there was no universe, so what exactly created it? For something to create itself, it would have to exist before it existed, and that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It would be like me trying to pick myself up off the ground by grabbing my own belt. I can't do it. Something outside of me would have to lift me, right? Now, some will say, fine, the universe just always existed. The universe is eternal. And that is a much better answer. In fact, for a long time, many scientists believe exactly that. An eternal universe. No beginning, no end. That's what I was taught in high school, when middle school probably. I don't remember middle school. Nothing happens, right? Scientists started looking deeper into the universe and discovered that the galaxies are moving away from each other. The universe is expanding. So if you just rewind that, everything gets closer, everything gets smaller, everything gets hotter, everything gets denser, until eventually you arrive at the singularity. You arrive at the beginning of the universe, right? Now, the Big Bang does not prove God. It doesn't. The Big Bang is our best scientific model of describing early expansion of the universe. But it doesn't answer another question. Why was there a universe to expand? The science is incredibly good at telling us how things happen. It can tell us why there's anything to happen at all. Here's another way to think about this. Imagine you're hiking through the woods, you come across a cabin, and you ask, who built this cabin? And your buddy says, no one. Just happened. Right? You'd laugh. Not because cabins themselves are impossible, but because cabins themselves don't explain cabins themselves. Right? They point beyond themselves to a builder. Now, the universe is infinitely more complex than a cabin. It has laws, structures, mathematics, energy, information, life. Shouldn't we at least ask whether it's also pointing beyond its own self? I'm not saying that the universe existing at all proves God. It's just another piece of evidence. Everything we experience inside this universe seems to depend on something else. Trees come from seeds, people from parents, buildings from builders, books from authors. So what explains the universe itself? At some point, every worldview is going to have to answer that question. Some people believe the answer is an eternal universe. Some believe it's a multiverse. Some say we simply don't know. I believe the best explanation is an eternal creator. Not because it's the easiest answer, but because to me, it's the explanation that best fits the evidence. Now here's where things start getting weird. The universe doesn't just exist. It follows rules. Mathematical rules. Rules that your mind can understand. We're going to grasp this. The universe follows rules and your brain understands them. This is a huge mystery. So let's go ahead and add another piece of evidence to our board, right? This fascinates me so much. Mathematics. I know. Trust me, I know that some of you just groaned and some of you are like, oh. But stick with me here. I don't want you to solve an algebraic equation. Let's just ask a question. What is math? Seriously, think about this. Did humans invent mathematics? Or did we discover it? Take the number pi. 3.1549. 15459. Been a while since I did geometry. Not a geometry guy. Goes on forever. Pi just keeps on pieing. Nobody invented pi, though. And if every human disappeared tomorrow, the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter would still be pi. If aliens landed next week, their circles would have to use pi. It's not an option. This isn't something we invented. It's something we discovered. The same's true for prime numbers or geometry or gravity. We discover these patterns. We don't vote them into existence. We don't change them. We find them. Now, here's the part that blows my mind. Not only does math exist, the universe obeys it. Engineers use math to design bridges. NASA uses math to send spacecraft millions of miles through space. Your GPS uses math to tell you where you're standing within a few feet. Your phone works because of math. Electricity works because of math. Physics work because of mathematics. Think about that. The universe doesn't behave randomly. It behaves in ways that can be described with mathematics. Why? If it's just some randoming, why that? Here's the weird part. Not only does the universe follow mathematic rules, you can understand them. Out of all the creatures, human beings can discover the laws of nature. We can predict eclipses hundreds of years before they happen. We can calculate where planets will be decades from now. We can send spacecraft, across the solar system, right? That's incredible. That's super duper cool. There's a famous physicist, Eugene Wigner, and I got the paper up here, and he wrote a paper called The Unreasonable Effectiveness of Mathematics in Natural Sciences. And if you guys are going to read any one of these papers, either this or really deep dive on information theory, which is coming up, these two things are just so interesting to me. But the question that this paper asks is, why does math work so well? Why should ideas that exist in our mind describe the real universe with such incredible accuracy? Now, can science use mathematics? Yes. In fact, science depends on it. But science doesn't really answer why mathematics, right? Science uses mathematics, but why mathematics? Right? Like, why anything? Why mathematics? Right? I know that we're being kind of silly with the questions here, but why? This doesn't just explain the universe. It is written in a language our minds can understand. Math is a language that we speak. This makes perfect sense to me. If the universe was created by an intelligent being, then that intelligent being is ordered, and our minds produce order, our minds produce logic, and our minds produce and understand mathematics. If the universe came from an intelligent creator, that's what I would expect, right? That's the expectation there. Now, remember, does math prove God? Not by itself. Not by itself. It's just another clue, another piece of evidence. But now we're starting to get a little pattern, aren't we? The universe exists. The universe is orderly. The universe follows mathematical laws. And somehow our minds are capable of understanding those laws. All right. Now, let's look at something even stranger. The universe isn't just orderly, it also appears to be incredibly well suited for life. Take a look around. The universe isn't just here, it isn't just understandable, it also seems to be incredibly well suited for life. Let me explain. Imagine you're baking a cake. Too much flour, it doesn't come out right, too much water. It's ruined. Leave out the eggs. I don't really know what happens. I'm not a baker, right? Baking isn't just a random thing. It's ingredients that are all put together and they have to work together in certain quantities, right? And if you make sourdough, then you know these are very, very exact measurements, right? The universe is kind of like that. There are laws and physical constraints that govern everything. Gravity, electromagnetism, the strong nuclear force, the weak nuclear force, these aren't things scientists invented. These are properties of the universe that we discovered. Imagine turning up gravity. Stars burn a little differently. Galaxies form a little differently. Planetary systems change. Turn it far enough, life like ours isn't possible. And when I say far enough, it's not much. Turn it in the other direction, the opposite problem happens. Right? The point isn't that we know these exact numbers where everything breaks. The point is that life depends on an incredible balance between many different moving parts of the universe. Think about our own planet. We're the right distance from the sun for liquid water. The Goldilocks zone, right? Our atmosphere protects us from harmful radiation while still letting in the sunlight that we and our plants and our other animals need, right? Jupiter acts like a giant vacuum cleaner, pulling in or deflecting many different objects that otherwise would threaten our inner solar system. Our moon stabilizes the Earth's tilt, which keeps our seasons relatively stable. None of these things by themselves prove God, but together, let's get even a little smaller. Way smaller. Inside nearly every cell of your body is DNA. DNA isn't just a chemical. It's information. Think about that. Your body knows how to build eyes, skin, bones, muscle, your immune system, your heart. Not only does your body know how to build it, hear me out here, your body has a TCP/IP protocol. All the nerds just went, oh, that's right. Somebody's not standing inside your body giving it instructions. Those instructions are stored in your DNA. Now, here's a question. Where does information come from? Right? Where does it come from at all? When you read a book, you assume there was an author, right? When you read computer code, you assume there was a programmer. When you receive a text, you assume there was a sender. Why? Because information is one of the hallmarks of intelligence. Now, DNA is not literally computer code, it's chemistry. But it's chemistry carrying information, instructions, a language, a sequence that can be copied, repaired, and read. That should at least make us stop and ask a question. How did information get here? Now, scientists have come up with a couple different answers for this, right? Some believe that random mutations and natural selection are enough to explain everything. I don't. But others believe these processes still leave deeper questions, right? I'm not trying to settle that debate. I'm asking something much simpler. Why is there a universe capable of producing information in the first place? Think about it. You really should go dive in on some information theory. There are so much of this, so cool, especially if you're a computer guy like me and you understand how like compression works. Yeah, anyways, sorry. I'm going to nerd out. I'm going to get on a tangent. So that's just another one, right? Let's go over what we've covered so far. Universe exists. It follows mathematical laws. Those laws can be understood by our human brains, by our hunk of meat or electric meat between our ears. Life depends on an incredible balance of physical conditions. Living things contain a astonishing amounts of information. I heard an analogy, I don't know how accurate it is, but it was like 279,000 pages of information is you. And of that 279,000, because you're all 99.9%, like 500 pages of that is the uniqueness of you. And if you study information theory, it's really cool because there's more information in the gibberish than there is in, like, you know, Shakespeare. I'm just saying, I'm putting it out there. Anyways. So we covered all this, and at some point we have to ask, are these just unrelated facts? Is this just, are we, you know, is that it? Whatever. Or are all these starting to point towards something? So we've talked about the universe, mathematics, life. The strangest thing? It's sitting right here, dude. It is your electric meat. Yep. Electric meat, because explaining consciousness, that is one of the hardest problems in all of science. Think about what's happening right now. Light is bouncing off of your screen, entering your eyes. Electric signals are traveling through your brain. Neurons are firing. Science can watch all of that. We can put you in an MRI, and we can watch all the different parts of your brain light up and become active. That's incredible. Spinning magnets can look at your brain. Just hold on. Anyways, here's the question. Why does that produce you? Why is electric head meat you? Not your body, not your brain. You. Your thoughts, your memories, your fears, your dreams. That little tiny voice in your head that's listening to me right now, your inner monologue. Why is there a first person experience at all? Well, nobody really knows. Science is incredibly good at telling us what parts of the brain become active when we think, but explaining why electrical activity creates a conscious experience, that's one of the biggest mysteries in science. Let's go a step further. Why beauty? Think about that. Think about this. A pretty sunset doesn't keep you alive. Right? Seeing a mountain range beautifully painted on like a beautiful mountain range landscape painting, this doesn't help you survive. Music isn't food. And yet people will travel halfway around the world just to stand on the edge of the Grand Canyon. Why? Because it's beautiful. Why does music move us? Why can a few notes arranged in the right order make a grown man cry? Why does hearing an old song instantly bring back memories from 20 years ago? These are some wild questions, right? Let's talk about something I think every single time I sit down and eat. Food. Seriously. I'm serious. God could have made eating completely practical. Imagine if your tongue had 3 or 4 settings. Calories, salt, poison, protein. These are the 4 settings of your tongue. I go, let's stick my tongue out. Stick my tongue out, and there's not like 1,000 little dots. They're just 4 little pads. That's all you need. That's all you need to survive. In a perfectly ordered universe that would be simply aiming at survival, that's what you would have. But instead, you get thousands of different flavors. Coffee, chocolate, fresh bread, a perfectly cooked steak, ice cream, fresh peaches, barbecue. Every culture on this planet has developed amazing food. And they all taste different. It blows my mind. It blows my mind. That's just crazy. Not because it proves God in and of itself. I think that God loves us, and that's why God was like, you know what? Here's some ice cream. You know, but like, it just tells us something about Him. Right? This doesn't prove God. It tells us that if there is one, He didn't make the universe barely work. He made one that's enjoyable. It's full of color. It's full of flavor. It's full of music. It's full of laughter, friendship, love. somebody might say, well, evolution explains all that. Okay, all right. Maybe it explains part of it. Maybe it explains why we developed certain senses that helped us survive. And that's a fair discussion. But surviving isn't the same as beauty. Surviving doesn't require Mozart. It doesn't require laughing so hard with your friends that your stomach hurts. These are gifts. Then there's love, not attraction, right? Not attraction generating procreation. I'm not chemistry. I'm talking real love. The kind of love that makes a father sacrifice his own life for his child. Or the kind of love that would send a firefighter to run into a burning building. Or the kind of love that causes a soldier or a Marine to dive on top of a grenade to save his brothers. Why do we call these things noble? Why do they stir something inside of us? Why do we admire such a sacrifice? Because deep, deep down, you know, some things are greater than yourself. Some things are worth dying for. Now that's hard to explain if the universe is nothing more than particles bouncing around, randomness, right? Now remember, this doesn't prove God in and of itself. It doesn't prove God. We got a lot of fingers pointing in one direction now. So what conclusion should we draw? Well, we covered a lot of ground. And we we barely even got into any of the deep, we didn't read any of these papers. We just brought them up. They're just over there. Oh, this is the last one. I'm sorry. I forgot to show you guys the definition of morality. But we talked about evil. We talked about the beginning of the universe. We talked about mathematics. We talked about the laws of physics. We talked about fine-tuning. We talked about DNA. We talked about consciousness, beauty, love, objective morality. None of these things by themselves prove there's a creator. But remember, a detective doesn't solve a case because of one small piece of evidence. He can solve it because of all the evidence pointing in the same direction. A cumulative case. Now, maybe you've watched this entire video and you think, I don't believe this. I'm not completely convinced. And that's okay. My goal is not to force you to believe anything. Faith isn't something that I can bully you into. My goal is a lot simpler than that. I just wanted to show you that believing in a creator isn't some blind leap into the darkness. It is a conclusion that many thoughtful and intelligent people have reached after looking at the same universe that we all live in. I want to leave you with a question. Which explanation makes more sense? That everything we talked about today, the universe, its laws, its order, its beauty, its information, its mathematics, our minds, our conscience, our ability to reason, our desire for justice, are all ultimately the result of blind, unguided processes? Or do they point towards an intelligent mind behind reality itself? A couple years ago, I would answer that first question without hesitation. I wanted there to be no God. I didn't hate Christians. That's not the case. I just simply thought that there was no evidence to lead me there. That's when I started researching this stuff. That's when I dove into physics. That's when I dove into mathematics. That's when I dove into philosophy. I looked at arguments from atheists, arguments from Christians, right? And I wanted to know who had the better case. The funny thing is, the deeper that I went, the harder it came for me to believe that reality is just oops. That doesn't make me a Christian overnight. And it didn't make me a Christian overnight. Far from it, actually. It took years. But it did convince me of one thing. Believing in a creator wasn't irrational. It was reasonable. Now, maybe you're where I was a couple years ago. Maybe you're not ready to believe at all, and that's okay. Just keep asking questions. Keep reading. Keep challenging your own assumptions. Are you yourself? You ever try that? You ever sit down and think, like, am I right? Here's what you do. Argue your position as the opponent. Because truth does not fear investigation. If God is real, you do not have to protect him from hard questions. Either way, keep searching honestly. Please go in and read all these. I'm going to try to like make a little compilation maybe and put all this together so there's some links underneath in the video on YouTube. And yeah, I really, really want you guys to go in and look this up. Keep asking questions. Do not purchase anything that anybody sells you. Do not trust Jared. Okay? Now, you can go in and read all these guys. The only thing that I would ever say that you can blindly trust is the Bible. Because, anyways, if there is a creator, what is the next question? And that's going to be next week's lesson. That's what we're going to get into next. If there is a creator, who is he? And if he made you, then knowing him would be one of the single most important things that you'll ever do. All right, you guys, thank you so much for spending this time with me. I genuinely appreciate you guys sitting here and listening to the whole video. And if this video made you think, maybe share it with somebody. You know? Not because I want more views. I don't really, honestly, I say this all the time. If just one person hears this, man, then it's all worth it. I don't care about views. I don't care about money. I don't care about fame. I don't care about none of that. But I do care about giving people the honest chance to examine evidence for themselves. That's why whenever I do these videos on here, you guys notice in all my other videos, I got the Bible, not just the Bible verse up, but the context. All right? Grace and peace to you, my brothers and sisters. Thank you all so much for hanging out, listening to my video. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Take care.